What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Living Free channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing y'all my trip from Salt Lake down to the Phoenix area. And I'm going to be talking about something that's been frustrating me like crazy, which is the new MODIS system, the FMCSA MODIS system, and how that's been delaying me getting my authority and getting everything set up. It's been very frustrating. When everybody's complaining about the industry, who is actually, staying steady and still succeeding in those times? That's how you know who the real, who the real players are. And that's whether you're one truck or multiple trucks. Frito-Lay really is a beautiful place to pick up. I don't know if any of you watching this have been here, but if you're at Crete, you've probably been to the Frito-Lay. It's in Kearns, Utah. And, I always love doing Frito-Lay loads. It's very simple just because they're light. Very light, very easy to deal with, usually drop and hook. And, that's what we like as truck drivers, is easy in and out at the shipper and easy in and out at the receiver. And, they got a nice little view too at this one. And, I try to take Frito-Lay loads with Crete, at least, out of Phoenix. If I'm going to head up to Utah, I try to take Frito-Lay, again, just simply because the loads are a lot lighter. If I don't end up getting a Frito-Lay load up here, then a lot of times the loads are pretty heavy, and it's really not worth taking a load up here, because a lot of times they're probably 39, 40,000 plus pound loads. And, it just doesn't make any sense to do that. But anyway, yeah, I'm about to head in here and get my paperwork already hooked up and head on down to Avondale, Arizona. All right, we are loaded up. We got our paperwork, and we are headed to Avondale, Arizona. And yes, this is my load headed home. Like I said a minute ago, very nice load, nice and light, about 7,000 pounds. I got a chip load coming up here. That was 7,000, and this is 7,000 going back. So you absolutely cannot beat that when it comes to getting any freight from Salt Lake to Phoenix or Phoenix to Salt Lake. Very happy about that. So I'm going to be going home, and I'm going to be trying to, I'm going to take a couple days. Monday you really can't do anything because it's a holiday. So I am going to take Tuesday and try to get everything sorted, man, with this, at least get my DOT number. Because once I get my DOT number, I can start, really getting everything going. And, this MODIS system, as I alluded to earlier, has been a major problem, man. I mean, like, they already had an entire week where, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't submit any applications or anything. And so I was on hold for a week, couldn't do my application for my DOT and MC number. And then this week, the new system with the FMCSA is glitching and having all kinds of issues. So it's making it really hard to submit an application. And man, it's just crazy. And I know that I've been reading that a lot of other people who already have their authority or are trying to do the same thing, apply for their own authority, have been having the same sort of issues with this MODIS situation or this MODIS system. It's like, man, it comes as no surprise. It's the federal government. They screw everything up pretty much that they get their hands on. But it's like, man, you would think that they would make sure this system was working properly before they launch it. You would think. But again, of course, it's the federal government. So, that's pretty much impossible to ask of them. say, I love my state of Arizona, but man, Utah never ceases to amaze me. I just want to take a minute to talk about how beautiful this state is, man. I mean, honestly, especially this I-15 run, you run, between like Salt Lake and Las Vegas. Well, 15 runs all the way down into the LA area, but I mean, it's just so beautiful out here. It's so peaceful. It's so beautiful. You run right alongside a couple big national forests, big mountain ranges, and it just never gets old, man. I've done this run so many times, and like I said, it never ceases to amaze me. So, to pick up though where I left off a little earlier, yeah, I've been having a lot of trouble with this new system with the FMCSA, and in particular, here's exactly my situation, and I have been reading a lot of like Facebook posts and stuff like that of people who have their authority already, or they're looking to get their authority just like me, and they're having the same issue. So, with this new MODIS system, you have to go in and do like facial recognition, upload your ID, and then you put in all your business information, your personal information, yada, yada, yada. Upload your, if you have like an LLC or S corporation, you upload your articles of organization or your incorporation articles, basically all your information. Well, I did all that, and I got to the end and I submitted everything, and it said, all right, well, we're going to have to go in for manual review of all your documents. It's like, manual review? Okay. So it says, if you have any questions, please call this number. It's the FMCSA number. And of course, when you call, the line's super busy. One, they're not very clear on who you call at first. And so, you just basically have to guess which number to hit to speak to the right person. So, of course, when you hit the number, it's a 50-minute wait. And they're like, all right, well, you can choose the option to have us call you back. And, you go through the option to have them call you back, and they say, all right, well, we'll call you back in approximately 50 minutes. Well, they don't call you back in 50 minutes. They call you back in 3 or 4 hours after that, if you're lucky, and or maybe call you the next day, or not call you at all, and you have to call again and keep putting in the option for them to call you back. Because if you just wait on hold, which I did, they won't even answer. Well, somebody called me back, and turns out I was speaking to the wrong person. I needed to speak to new registrations and new applicants. But as I mentioned earlier, there was no clear-cut, hey, here's the number you hit to speak to somebody about a new registration or new applicant. So she gave me the right options to hit. So I had to go back through that process again. And by the time someone called me back, of course, it was Friday. And, the system was shut down, or not really shut down, but I guess they were going through and doing maintenance on the new site. So, I mean, man, basically this last week has been killed by me trying to get a hold of the FMCSA to get them to look at my documents or figure out why it has to go through a manual review. And by the time you get a hold of somebody, it's already a Friday, and of course this is a holiday weekend by the time I'm making this video. This is Memorial Day weekend. And so nothing's going to get done till Tuesday. Nothing. And so, man, it's just very frustrating. But, in this video, I do want to talk about how important it is to get away from that. Because, it is what it is. The timing of when I tried to get this authority going is, right in the middle of them changing their entire registration system over, and it's just unfortunate timing. It's going to happen. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to get it going, but there has been a slight delay, and it's very frustrating. And that does bring me to my point that I'm about to make here and throughout the rest of this video as I head home, which is, you know, patience is everything in trucking, man. Like, I know so many people in this industry that they either drive for me or they've driven for me, or I've known them through, working at Millis or working at Crete, or just people I've watched on YouTube or people I've listened to at terminals and truck stops. And the number one thing that gets people in this business is they're not patient. And I'm speaking to myself on this too. I really am. I'm speaking to myself. Like, for example, what I'm going through. You can get frustrated, you can get mad at the process, but you got to go through it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about going through the process of, just a trucking career, and how so many guys, they want to rush the process of success, of, achieving financial success in trucking. And what do I mean by that? A lot of guys want to come into trucking and after a year immediately be making $100,000 a year plus, or immediately be able to go and buy that truck and be an owner operator or whatever, grow a fleet, and thinking that they have to rush the process. I'm not saying that, hey, if you can't, if you can do it quickly, if you can do it in a year or 2 years where you're making really big money and you've done that, great. Do what do it as fast as you can. But in all actuality, if you're starting from nothing in trucking, you're going to have a tough time, getting to the big money where you're making, six figures or more, and, getting to where you have enough money to make a play in the business. I'll give a good example of that. People who want to go from company driving to owner operator. That is probably the biggest step you're going to make in your trucking career if that's what you plan to do. Now, if you plan to just stay company and run under a company and maximize your retirement accounts and do a lot of the things I talk about on this channel, then this really doesn't apply to you. Your main focus should be getting your experience, having your endorsements or whatever, getting as high of a pay as you possibly can in trucking and putting as much of that money away as possible and investing it into, assets like index funds or real estate or whatever. But let's talk about going to the next level, as in owning a business. When you buy a truck, whether you lease that truck on to a carrier or you get your own authority, you own a business. And you are taking a big risk. You're putting a lot of money into a business and into a very risky business at that. Most of the time, 95% of the time, people are taking out huge amounts of debt to go be an owner operator. And I've been very clear, on this channel, that my recommendation, not saying that you can't do it another way and have success, but my recommendation is always going to be on this channel to do it debt-free. If you want to succeed for the long term, I'm talking good times and bad times. If you want to thrive in any time period, up market, down market, sideways market, the goal should be to do it debt-free. Save up. Yeah, it's going to take you longer to get started, but it's best to save up and pay cash, and it's best to start out with like a $20,000 to $30,000 emergency fund for that equipment. So whether you buy a truck and trailer or just a truck and you do power only, I think you should do it debt-free. I really do. If that's your goal, to be an owner-operator and eventually grow a fleet and be successful in the trucking business, that is your best bet long-term. 100%. That is going to be your best bet. Why is that? Because this business is very volatile. The rates in trucking are very volatile. Again, sometimes the market's up, way up. Sometimes the market is way down. And when you have payments, I don't care if that you call, $500 a week truck payment low or $400 a week, that's still, add that up. Let's say your truck payment's $500 a week. That's $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year. And to put that into perspective, if you run 10,000 miles a month, that's 24 cents a mile that truck is costing you. That's just the truck, right? So who has the advantage? The carrier, whether you're one truck or multiple trucks, that has a 24-cent per mile less cost of operation, or the one that has a higher cost. I mean, it's common sense, right? It's just simple math. So, if rates go from $2.50 a mile to, $2, right? Well, the company that has 24 cents a mile more in margin, because they don't have that truck payment every single month, no matter what, guess what? That company that has that lower cost of operation, that debt-free business, is probably more than likely going to survive or be less of a slave to their truck, all yada, 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 all those things. But man, I mean, it happens all the time where, hey man, I got 5 to 10 grand saved up. I want to go put down on a truck, and should I do this? And I'm not here to tell you not to do anything. But in my opinion, you're probably not going to succeed for the long run. You're probably not. Even if you put like 50% down and you have an emergency fund, $20,000, $30,000 saved up as a cushion, and you're a runner, you work really hard, you're going to run as hard as you did as a company guy, and your plans to pay that truck off as soon as possible, like, you can make it work. I'm not going to sit here and say you can't. I'm just saying the risks are higher because the cost of operation is higher. It's very simple. When the tide goes out, you can tell who's skinny dipping. And that is a quote from Warren Buffett. And he's talking about, you can tell in a bad economy who the real players are and who the pretenders are. All right, we are here, and they're not open. I'm dropping this on a Sunday. They are not open on the weekends, but fortunately, they give us the gate code, and we're able to drop this trailer, or I'm able to drop this trailer and leave the BOLs in the nose of the trailer. All right, so we are in here, and my goal is to get an empty trailer. So basically, you pull in here, and you find a spot over here on the left side over here, and here's a good spot right here. I'm going to drop it and go check and see if that creek trailer over there is empty, because I am going home, and I would like to go home with an empty trailer. That way, I come out of the house with an empty, and I don't have to go chase one down coming out of the house, because that always kills a lot of time having to go find an empty trailer. So hopefully that one over there is good to go. So I came around back, and I'm going to see if they have an empty back here. That trailer was not empty, uh, but it does look like there's a creek trailer here. So hopefully this one is empty. Maybe it will be. I'm going to get out, check, and then I'm going to finish up the topic of this video. So to pick up where I left off with the Warren Buffett comment, that is how I'm going to end this video. And to elaborate more on, the example of trucking, as far as, jumping from company to owner operator, that's a big leap, right? That's a good example of, when the tide goes out, you can tell who's skinny dipping. In trucking, you can tell who is, really in a good position and who isn't when the market's down. When everybody's complaining about the industry, who is actually, staying steady and still succeeding in those times. That's how you know who the real, again, who the real players are. And that's whether you're one truck or multiple trucks, doesn't matter in trucking. It's the same thing with people in real estate. It's the same thing with people who invest in stocks or other industries. Same thing. It all applies to, it's just business in general, investing in general. But I'm using trucking, of course. That's because, that's what I do. And that's what this channel is about. And most of you that watch me, that's what you're doing. And a lot of you want to do, what I'm talking about. A lot of you want to, graduate from being company to owner operator and maybe have multiple trucks one day. And, all I'm going to say is just be careful with your decision making. Really think it through before you pull that trigger on going to the next level. Before you do that, make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Be objective about your situation. Don't be emotional. Take emotion out of the business. Business, when you're making a business decision, it's so hard to do this. And like that applies to me. It's hard for me to do it. I get emotional. We all do. We're human beings. But you got to take emotion out of your decisions, because if you're not black and white objective about your decision making, you're going to make a bad decision. You're going to make a bad move, and that move is going to end up burning you. What do I mean by that? Kind of like I alluded to earlier. If you have very little money to put down on a truck and your dream is to be an owner operator, nothing wrong with that. But your chances of success by putting the bare minimum down on a truck and financing as much of it as possible and successfully paying that truck off and successfully making more money than you could as a company driver, and not ending up to where you end up in an upside down situation on that truck, ending up to where you have to sell it and get out of it and really just get burned by the industry, period. In order to not end up in that situation, you were better off staying with your company job and stacking up your money. And yeah, maybe it may have taken you an extra year or 2 years to get to that point to where you could put a sizable down payment down where your monthly payment is very low. I recommend pay cash, like I alluded to earlier. And that's the ideal situation. If it takes you longer to do that, but you do that, and it's a lot easier for you to start. It's a lot easier for you to run your business. It's just way less stress, way less risk, and way more money, by the way. Okay. And so it's the same thing. Like I'm talking about going from leasing my trucks on to Crete to getting my own authority. That is a big step. I'll even talk about that right now. And how is that such a big step? Oh, you're just an owner out getting your own authority. Well, when I go from Crete to own authority, my insurance costs are going to triple at least. Insurance is going to triple. I've got to have money for a trailer. Trailers, plural. I've got to put money down on insurance. You got to put a lump sum of money down on every truck that I bring over. I got to have pretty much about $4 to $5 to put down on insurance to move that truck over. Then I got to register the vehicle on top of that, right? You got to pay for the registration, your cab card, your IFTA, and your IRP, your plates. That's a couple grand right there. So bare minimum, every truck that I move over to my authority, my monthly costs triples for the insurance, and I got to pay for the registration. That's a couple grand plus another, 4 or 5 grand of again, insurance down payment, and then all the other things that I got to take care of. It's a lot more risk, 100%. Now it's necessary at the level I'm at to do it. And I've talked about that in other videos, but that is why I have said, and I think I said this in the previous video I made, I'm going to do it slow. And that's what I'm saying to all of you. I'm not going to, do it super slow like a turtle, but I'm going to do it, urgently and as fast as I can, but also safely. I'm not going to, all 7 trucks, let's move them over in the first year. I'm not going to do that because it's not realistic. 2, it's not cost effective, really. It doesn't make financial sense to do it that quickly. 3, that's a lot of workload managing 7 different trucks under your own authority. I'm going to need some help. I'm going to need that backing of Crete, that a lot of that operations that they handle. I'm going to need them to do that for me while I transition and build my own systems and, really get used to running under my own authority. Also age my authority, get to where I get that past that first year and I can get cheaper insurance. I can also work with 100% of the brokers versus 30 to 50% of them in the first year. I'm going to do it slow. And what I'm saying to y'all is, slowly but urgently, same thing. If you want to save up and become an owner operator, invest in real estate or invest in stocks, make sure you have the right plan and your objective about what it is you're doing. Your objective too, again, about whether or not you're in the right position to go and do it. Just please, if you're watching me and you're watching this video, and you watched all the way till the end, I appreciate it. Number one, like the video, sub to the channel, stay tuned for more content like this in the future. But, you know, what I'm getting at is, guys, you got to have a plan. I preach this in almost every video. You got to have a plan, but be objective about whether or not you're ready to go to the next level. There is a lot of headaches. Every time you level up in trucking, there's more headaches. When you go from company to owner op, whether you're leased on or have an authority, doesn't matter. There's way more headaches. Now it's all on you to manage that equipment, to maintain that equipment, to bring in revenue, to cut your expenses, to make sure you're running a profitable operation. Same thing when you go from one truck to two. Now you got to hire somebody and deal with all that. And you got to learn how to recruit and yada, yada, yada. There's just more responsibility as you level up. Not saying don't do it. More money, more problems. That's, an old cliche saying, but it's true. The more money you make, the more problems you're going to have, which is not a bad thing. You can embrace it and deal with it and be successful. But point is do think level up, but level up safely so that you maintain success over the long run. I would rather, to end with this, I would rather grow slowly but surely and do it debt free, because, and that's just in my own personal situation, this business, I'd rather grow this business debt free and do it slowly but consistently and stay in business over the next 5 to 10 years versus try to speed up the process and do it faster and use leverage and do what most people do. But chances are, in the next down economy we enter into, it's going to eat me up. It's going to be very stressful running that business. It's going to be very hard to maintain profitability. And I don't want to go through that. I would rather be in business 5 years from now and do it the slow and steady way rather than try to double my growth using leverage and add stress and headache to my life. And yeah, I may double in growth, but I also may be bankrupt and go out of business. That's what I'm getting at. Is it really worth it to end it? Is it really worth it to go to the next level? Absolutely it is. But just be patient. Do it objectively when you know it's the right time to do it. You will know. If you're objective about numbers, if you're objective about your situation, you take emotion out of the decision, it's going to be an easy decision to make. That's my video for today. I'm headed home. I don't know where I'm going out of the house, but I will be, coming up with another video after this, and I hope y'all stay tuned for that. So God bless. Thank you for watching, and peace out.